saw, I'm guessing it's got to be from underneath the nose of the F-18.
What you saw is different than what's out there, and that's what's so interesting. They quickly uploaded this to Cypernet, and the footage you saw, you describe it very differently than what is out there about the events. What do you see on the screen?
You can see that the F-18s are moving, and you see this object mimic the F-18s. This object had shot basically from the ocean up. You could see that. That object made a couple different quick maneuvers. So if the F-18 made a banked left, it mocked the F-18s every time.
You're describing the object mirroring the pilot, so actually mirroring the movements, like mocking the movements. It was outpacing our best fighter planes.
Oh, easy. Oh, my God, yeah. The last part of the video that I remember is that this object, if you're looking at the screen, it went left, and then it banked straight up. I mean, it was insane. I couldn't even explain. Like, it just went to the left really fast and went boom, went straight up. And I know this was on the Cypernet because we slowed it down. Like, they slowed it down by frame, like basically in slow-mo. And you could see where this thing, it doesn't even exist. Like, it like skips time, where it's that fast that you cannot see this object for a period of a couple frames. And then it just, boom, it goes up. And I remember the officer saying, there's nothing on this planet that can do that. It's not possible. The aircraft would be in pieces. How many G's is that to pull up like that? It's just not possible. We don't have anything like that can move like that on this planet Earth. And there's nothing that can take those type of G's, that force. That's what they were trying to point out, too. The officers, like, when we slow-mode the video, you didn't see it for so many frames. You wouldn't see the object for several frames. And then you saw it, and then, boom, it was gone. When it made that maneuver, it would basically disintegrate, into pieces.
So it was so fast, and the G-forces would have been so spectacular, your cameras couldn't even pick it up.
Exactly. Yep. That's exactly it.
Well, for years, the U.S. government quietly spent millions of dollars investigating UFOs, and then they lied about it. Why have they lied about it? One reporter says he knows why. It's interesting. Stay tuned. Here's a story that, unlike impeachment, actually matters. UFOs, for years, were treated as the stuff of cranks and weirdos, but recently, people who are interested in the topic have been joined by a formidable ally, the American military. Turns out for years, the Pentagon spent millions investigating UFO phenomenon. They've lied about it. However, in a recent piece for the Washington Examiner, columnist Tom Rogan came out with a theory as to why they've been lying, and it's worth hearing. Tom Rogan joins us tonight. Tom, thanks so much for coming on. So one of the things you hear is, well, maybe these objects are Russian or Chinese, but your piece points out Russia and China have literally lost aircraft chasing these things. So they're not Russian or Chinese.
So we have a declassified British government document, which is a research document into UFOs, that points out a couple of times, actually, that about 4 Soviet pilots, perhaps Russian pilots since, were lost trying to engage these aircraft.
Were killed. Does it say how?
Doesn't say how. And I haven't been able to find out how. I did hear from someone, though, engaged was an appropriate term to use, so that they were trying to shoot these things down, was the implication.
Okay, so if Russia, China, and the U.S. have all had this experience, then these are not.
These are not. And I think that's a pretty clear assessment on the part of the military.
These are not made by human beings.
No. Well, yeah, I think that's a fair assessment based on the capabilities, especially with some of the aircraft that the Navy have seen in recent years are manifesting, right? That you have things that are going hundreds of knots under the water, anti-gravity, instantaneous hypersonic acceleration, that you have basically capability performance without jet propulsion.
Right.
This stuff is not stuff that China or Russia have anywhere near the capability
or that physics can explain.
Exactly.
So why is the Pentagon lying about this? Why have they lied about it for so long?
I mean, that's the golden question. I think one reason is that a lot of people in the Pentagon fully don't understand what this is. I think they come to the conclusion it ain't from here.
Yeah.
But beyond that, they're somewhat flummoxed.
And you think they have come to that conclusion?
Yes, confidently.
They think this is extraterrestrial, just to be totally blunt about it.
Or extra-dimensional, something extra, let's put it that way.
It's not from this world.
Not from this world, and not from Elon Musk. Some people say maybe it's some secret billionaire somewhere. It's too advanced. It's also quite extraordinary the degree to which, when these things happen, right? When we've seen a lot of, or some coverage, not as much as we would want to see on the Navy in particular, but the nuclear synergy, the nuclear identifier, that a guy, Robert Hastings, wrote a book about this 10, 15 years ago, which is at some point probably going to become a bestseller because it talks about these things actually deactivating, in a couple of cases, US and Soviet ICBMs in the Cold War. So whatever these things are, intelligent machines, they're not ghosts, blips on the radar. Also their ability to move, both through space, air, and hundreds of knots underwater in terms of friction.
Nothing can go hundreds of knots. I mean, the whole thing is... So we're out of time, unfortunately. We should have led the show with this. We should be leading the show with this tomorrow, and so should every other newscast.
Well, it's great you're covering it. It's great you're covering it. No one else does.
Covering it more. It's unbelievable.
It is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Tom Ronan.
Delighted. And listen, there's so much to talk about. We last spoke back in August 2021. At the time, you had secured the funding for the Galileo project, and we were discussing what those plans are going to be. So much has happened since then. I've recently just read your blog from March, where you stated that the first telescope for the project would be built on the roof of the Harvard College Observatory. What's the planned timescale for this, and what can we expect from that telescope and piece of equipment once it's fully functional?
Well, we ordered the instruments, and we are planning to start in the middle of May or so, once all of them arrive, to start putting them together, because in difference from past reports about the unidentified objects in the atmosphere, we want to be in full control over the instrumentation. So it will not be a camera in a jittery cockpit of a fighter jet. And we want to use the best equipment possible in the market right now. And it's different from military equipment, of course, because it doesn't need to survive in a battlefield, and it could be of much higher fidelity. So we ordered the instrumentation. We want to put it together within a month on the roof of the Harvard College Observatory, not because that site is particularly interesting. In fact, it's cloudy in Cambridge, Massachusetts often, but we just want to have it close to us so we can test the system. And it will include an infrared detector that is made of 8 cameras covering the entire sky in the infrared at all times. So we are basically taking a video of the sky, and the infrared offers the benefit that you can observe objects also at night, even when the sun is out. You don't need something to shine on the object. If it's warm, you can see it in the infrared. And during the daytime, of course, you have the sun shining on objects, and that makes it easier to detect. So we have also a visible light camera that has a fisheye lens that looks at the entire sky again. And in addition to those two, there will be a radio sensor that looks for reflected radio waves. There is a transmission from radio stations everywhere, and this is a passive system that looks for the reflection of radio waves from any object in the sky. And then in addition, there will be an audio system recording sound. So we will get the full movie of the sky, both the video and the audio in different colors. And then there will be a computer system that analyzes the data and looks for objects of interest. And of course, that's the heart of the project, in the sense of identifying the nature of the objects we see. And there are 2 categories that are not of great interest, but will probably describe most of the objects we see. One of them is natural objects, like a bird, a lightning in the atmosphere, a meteor, things that come naturally. And the second category is objects made by humans, a drone, an airplane, a satellite. And both of these categories are not of great interest to us. Of course, a drone manufactured by another country is of interest to the intelligence agencies, and a bird is of interest to a zoologist. But we don't really, I mean, we would like to recognize all of these, but what we want to see is whether there is anything else out there. And if we don't find anything else, so be it. We cleared up the fog. We identified whatever is out there. It's a fishing expedition, so we don't assume anything. We approach it agnostically. And science is about reproducible results. So if there is anything in the sky that is unusual, we should be able to find it. We don't need to wait for the government to declassify data. That's the whole spirit. Once this system works, and we hope that it will work by the end of the summer, then we will make copies of it and distribute them in different locations. And the number of copies depends on how much funding we have. So currently we have $2 million. We could afford about 5 to 10 copies. What we really need is hundreds of copies so that we get very good statistics of all the objects that might be out there based on the reports from the government. And for that, we need a funding level of $100 million. So my hope is that once we demonstrate that we know what we are talking about, we will get funding from wealthy individuals that are inspired by the goal of the project. So we should see. I mean, on Friday, for example, I'm participating in the concluding panel of Bitcoin 2022 in Miami, Florida, and there would be 15,000 people in the audience, some of which are very wealthy. And I hope they will be inspired. You never know.
I've got my $10 of Bitcoin, so if that ever increases exponentially, then maybe I'll get investing as well.
And also a month ago, the US Congress called for a permanent office that will address unidentified aerial phenomena. Apparently, there are objects in the sky that the Office of the Director of National Intelligence is unable to recognize. I mean, they're not doing their job, and they admit it in front of the Congress. So the Congress decided to establish an office that would look into that. That's interesting. So to figure out if Oumuamua or these unidentified aerial phenomena are encounters of the third kind, I decided to establish the Galileo project. There were a few multi-billionaires that visited the porch of my home in July. They allocated $2 million to my research account at Harvard. And I said, okay, I don't need anyone else. I can go ahead and do it. So we established the Galileo project because extraordinary conservatism leads to extraordinary ignorance. And we dare to look through new telescopes for the answer. Just to give an example, if you have a lens of 1 meter diameter, you can resolve an object the size of a person at a distance of a mile with a megapixel image, 1 million pixels. So that means you can see the head of a pin on that object. You can tell the difference between a label saying made in Russia or made in China and a label saying made on exoplanet X. And we want to get such telescopes in the optical visible band, in the infrared, in the radio, put them together. And in fact, we just started to order instruments. And then, separate from that, searching for the nature of unidentified aerial phenomena using these telescopes, we will also try to search for objects like Oumuamua. It's a fishing expedition. We don't know what we will find. If we find only sardines, these are objects that have mundane explanations, so be it. But it's the first scientific project aimed at checking if there is any equipment near Earth that was sent by extraterrestrial civilizations. The first time. And as you all know, on June 25th, there was a report delivered to Congress about these unidentified aerial phenomena. And that convinced me that we need to establish a project of this nature, the Galileo project. So we have by now more than 30 exceptional scientists in the research team. You can see them here. We have a scientific advisory board. We have a philanthropic board, public outreach, and a lot of research affiliates. I received thousands of emails from people interested in contributing from their expertise. We have $2 million, but to really accomplish the task, we need 20. So I hope that in the coming months we'll get there. And just to remind you, about 70 years ago, a famous physicist named Enrico Fermi went to lunch in Los Alamos, and they were chatting about extraterrestrials, and he said, well, if they are out there, where is everybody? Now, this is very pretentious because, we have recorded history of only 10,000 years. That's 1/1,000,000th of the age of the Earth. And why would they come and visit us right now when we are asking this question? It's just like sitting on the couch at home and saying, nobody is knocking on my door, therefore I have no neighbors. And also it's possible that the window of opportunity is short. We are destroying our environment. Maybe we will not survive for more than a few centuries from now, unless we correct ourselves. And so, if there is a short window of opportunity for us to communicate, then looking for radio signals is not the right approach. But looking for relics, equipment that they sent out, is the right approach. It's just like archaeology. And my hope is that it will inspire us to behave better. Because if you look at human history, what you see coming back again and again are groups of people trying to feel superior relative to other people. Now, if we find an advanced civilization out there that is much more intelligent than we are or sophisticated than we are, then all of our small genetic differences will become meaningless. And perhaps that will inspire us to treat each other with respect as equal members of the human species. Thank you.